We live in a society that loves to share. Just last week, my brother-in-law was telling me about some vitamins he's been taking. It was a bunch of stuff that I have never heard of. But the way that he described the vitamins, it made me feel like they were life-changing. And I thought about it for several days and finally asked him to send me a link to those supplements. And that one example, my friends, is just one small example of what we do as human beings every single day. We share. We share photos from our recent vacation. Well, obviously only the good ones. If we cook something amazing, we share the recipe. We share a location in our calendar with our spouses and our friends. We share workout plans, parenting ideas, and discount websites. We're people who absolutely love to share what works and what helps and what we love with other people. It's great that we're so quick to share. But for some reason, when it comes to our money, we don't like to share quite as much. Isn't it odd that we love to share our political views, but we have an aversion to sharing our money? Well, actually, I don't think it's odd. It's not odd at all. It seems to line up pretty well with our human nature. None of us grew up with a natural inclination towards sharing our stuff. No, we had to be told by adults over and over again to share our toys. And now that we're adults, we generally don't look at our money and think, oh, I wonder how much of this I can share. Giving, especially when it comes to money, it just simply doesn't come naturally. But ironically, it seems we're continually asked to give. There are incredible organizations all over the world that are funded by the financial generosity of so many people. So many of these organizations are doing amazing things that help people who desperately need it. But if you're like me, when you're asked to contribute, you may think, I don't know if I have enough money to give some of it away. Or maybe sometimes you're unsure if you'll have enough money to make it through another month. And right when you're in the middle of that tension, your kids bring up, of course, another thing they need money for. Or you get a flat tire and then the tire shop informs you that you desperately need 4 new tires on your car. And in those moments, how in the world could any of us think about giving money away? So not only does it not come naturally to share, but there's another issue we have with giving. We worked hard to earn our money in the first place. We put in the hours working hard for a boss who may or may not appreciate us. When we get a paycheck, the idea of giving some of it away, sometimes it just seems absurd. Why would we work so hard for money just to hand it off to someone else? Or for many of us, the issue is that we just don't think about it. We're busy. We have intentions to give, but we just forget. We have so much going on that giving isn't exactly at the top of our priority list. And if you feel any of these tensions, I get it. I promise that the goal of today isn't to make you or anybody else feel guilty, but instead is to invite us into something thrilling and freeing. This brings us to the Apostle Paul, who was the greatest missionary to ever walk this planet. He risked his life, and according to tradition, he eventually lost his life to spread the gospel and set up churches everywhere. And because Paul risked so much to start these churches, and because he cared so much about them, he felt heavily invested in what happened to them, even after he moved on to spread the name of Jesus in a new place. So he'd check in, he'd get updates on how everyone was doing, and send letters back to these churches. Some of these letters are included in the New Testament of the Bible. And one of Paul's letters to a church in Corinth included some encouragement about giving and about generosity. This is how he starts this train of thought. Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. In other words, farmers who plant a little, harvest a little, and farmers who plant a lot have the potential to harvest a lot. In the same way, when you and I give, our money, it isn't lost. It's planted, it's invested. And I'm not saying that people who give will get financially rich, obviously, but it's a blessing to us when we invest in things that are spreading the love of Jesus. Jesus himself told people to store up treasures in heaven. In other words, invest in something now that will be a blessing to you later. That's what generosity is. And then Paul continued, you must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives cheerfully. Paul was basically saying, I'm not demanding or insisting that any of you give. I'm not requiring you to give a certain amount of money. Giving is more about the state of your heart than it is the state of your wallet. You can either see generosity as a burden, or you can see generosity as an opportunity. It's completely up to you. And then Paul continued, And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. I mean, look at some of the words and phrases in this verse. Bless, abundantly, all that you need, abound. And what's funny is that Paul wasn't referring to attaining more money and more possessions. He was referring to being generous. Like, generous people aren't defined by their income or their lack of income. They're defined by their heart for Jesus and their love for other people. Their lives are blessed. I mean, just think about some of the people you know who are extremely generous, either with their time, their money, their possessions, or their encouragement. Like, would you define those people as happier or more unhappy than the average person? We know the answer to this. I mean, isn't it hard to find an extremely generous person who's a grouch all the time? And here's another way to think about it. Like, how many people at the end of their life look back and say, I wish I had given less. I wish I had held on to more of my money. Like, people are obviously gonna regret some things, but regretting generosity isn't one of them. In another letter written by Paul, he wrote these words: "He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things?" See, so often our focus is off when it comes to giving. We look at our money and what we would have to do to be generous. A different approach is to look at God and what he has done for us. See, he sent Jesus, who took on the guilt and the shame of our sin when he died on the cross as a sacrifice. There's so much good that's offered to us through the grace of our God. We look at our financial struggles and we wonder why we don't have more. Instead, we're invited to turn our eyes to Jesus and all the good that's offered to us because he was resurrected from the grave. I mean, think of it this way. Generosity is a response to the grace of God. Generosity is a response to the grace of God. I mean, generosity, it is a response to the grace of God. So if we're waiting until we have more money to give, we'll never have enough. But on the other hand, if we focus on the love, the blessings, and the goodness that comes through Jesus, our hearts will respond with a spirit of humility and giving. He has given us so much. Now, we can partner alongside of him and invest in others. So how do we start expressing generosity? Well, it's just as with everything in life, the best way to become more generous is simply to take a first step. I mean, some of you exercise and are disciplined with your workouts, but when you first got started, I mean, you had no clue what you were doing. You didn't have a detailed workout plan. You just simply walked into the gym for the first time, you took a step, and it works that way with generosity. So I encourage you to take this step. Sow one seed of generosity today, just one. Like, and a great place to sow that seed is right here at your church. I mean, just think about giving a financial gift or even a specific percentage each month to contribute to the mission and the vision of this church body. But if that's not a step you can take right now, that's totally fine. Your step could be that you buy lunch or coffee for someone else today. Anything that moves your heart in the direction of generosity. There's a verse in Proverbs, and I just love what it says. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So if you're not in a place financially where you can give any money, that doesn't mean you can't refresh others. I mean, think about things that are refreshing to other people. I mean, gifts. Do you have stuff that you can donate or give to people who could really benefit from it? Like, if you made the effort to collect some of the stuff and give it away, you can sow a seed of generosity that will be refreshing to them. What about kindness? I mean, genuine kindness, it's rare and it catches people's attention. It's another way you can practice generosity. What about compliments? Like, we live in a world where people withhold their encouraging words. Like, most people are too focused on themselves to share their words with others. Giving other people compliments and affirmations, oh my goodness, what an incredible way to sow a seed of generosity today. What about attention? I mean, just like we all have limited money, we all have limited time. And when you take the time to really give someone your attention, to really listen to them and be present with them, I mean, it's a way you're showing generosity. You can also strive toward becoming a person who looks around. I mean, just keep your eyes open. I mean, first to the gifts of grace that God has given to you, be alert to his blessings. I mean, don't just keep your head down and focus on your financial struggles and challenges. Stay alert to anything that could be credited as a gift of God's goodness in your life. Whether it's an encouraging text from a friend, an uplifting time of prayer, Bible reading or worship, or a time of close connection with your spouse or your child or a good friend, Try to recognize all the good things that are happening in your life and then connect those back to God. And after that, just look around at other people. Look for ways you can be a blessing and an encouragement to other people. Whether it's a financial gift, an encouraging word, or a prayer, or something else, look for ways you can respond to the grace of God by being generous and refreshing to other people. Giving to God or others with a cheerful heart, this is an act of faith, but it can also alter the trajectory of our lives and the lives of other people. When we develop a heart of generosity, we're the ones who benefit. It's like a double blessing, all right? A blessing to us and a blessing to others. And none of us will look back on our lives and regret having a spirit of generosity. But it starts, like we said, by taking a first step. By us deciding to be sowers, to be givers, to be generous, and to respond to the gifts of grace that God has given us, and to partner with Him and to show others that same grace.